Okay, now I'm live. Jesus. Hi, everyone. I'm live-ish. I'm alive. I'm barely alive. I don't know what's going on. I, uh, I thought I'd have a little more time after I went to the dump in the post office to get back here and do this, but I was wrong. I bet you can't even hear me. I bet my mic's not on. There, now my mic is on. Let me know if I sound okay, or if I'm echoey, or if I'm too loud while I fiddle with things. See how we each have a job to do? So yeah, while where the hell's... All right, so I went to the dump. I went to the post office. I came back here and I was late. I'm setting all up. I got a live studio update and it has changed the format of everything. So I'm in the duty. Oh, hey, I do have a chat open. Mike is okay, says B-Bo. Awesome, thank you. Okay, so apologize for the hair. Apologize for the, I was going to say the weirdness, but I guess if you're in for a pound, you're in for a pounder, as the saying doesn't go. In other words, you expect weirdness. You see what the topic is. Just give me 1 second. I got to pull up my notes. All right, so before we begin talking about skeptics and experiencers in the moment we live in, and the need for a haircut, let's talk about that first. I'm everyday human Derek on Blue Sky. Oh, good. Hi. Aloha. So this little online space I've been calling Wise Ask. It used to be for some app, the Wisdom app, which then got bought out by a company and became something else for like exercise or something. So I'm no longer spitting wisdom over the Wisdom app. So I just decided, well, I like the name Wise Ask because, double entendre, pun, play on words, something. And then it just was sort of an in-between the paranormal, paratopia type stuff and the spiritual, put that in quotes, our undoing type stuff. It seemed to fit in nicely in between there. And then I could just go live on YouTube whenever I wanted. But now that I've been doing Our Undoing Radio with Tom Cheatham for an entire season, that's about to stop. And Tom and I are going to go on in Wise Ask form. So this will be my last solo Wise Ask show. We're going to do it once a month. It'll be a Friday, most likely. It will be loosey-goosey, so it's not like, catch us every third Friday. It'll just be like, whenever we have time. But it will be once a month, and it will likely be a Friday. And it'll be Tom Cheatham and I, and we will just pick up. He wants to talk about my book Urgency. He's also mentioned some other, I don't know if they're books or essays that I guess I've got to read to talk about. And if you guys want to talk about anything or you have anything you want us to talk about, let me know. And the second that I get good at this live streaming technology with bringing Tom in, then I will be able to bring anyone in. So if you want to come and talk to Tom Cheatham and I, just let me know and we can set that up. So, all right, I think that's it for that. Oh, I forgot that I have these, as I'm releasing Paratopia, I have a folder of specials that we used to do, and I thought I was done with that for some reason, but I'm not. In fact, there are like 3 specials that I neglected to post, and so I'll be posting those probably starting next week. So look forward to more Paratopia than you would ever dream of. Okay. Geez, here's the problem. I wrote I wrote all this out. Should I just read it? I mean, I wrote out what was supposed to be my notes, but it might as well be an essay that I wrote out here. And then in parentheses after this little essay, it's like, go into it. Oh, okay. So the thing that I want to go into, I don't know if I really need to read all of this. Let us begin. There was, I guess, I don't know if it was an article that my wife was reading about Neil deGrasse Tyson talking about how climate change, what we're experiencing now with climate change, is the new normal. And I don't know, it set me off in my head a little bit because it reminds me that for years, for decades in fact, not just Neil deGrasse Tyson, but in fact, he's probably the least of our worries, but other scientific debunkers of UFOs and the paranormal spent decades going on TV, trying to make experiencers feel like a-holes, trying to say everyone's delusional or lying, or misidentifying obvious things, all of this. And, you know, obviously all of that stuff is true to an extent, but it's not true to all of the extent. But they like to pretend that it is, and then you've got, you know, what would he be? The grandfather of all debunkers, maybe? Phil Klass, rest his soul, who used to say that the reason he was debunking was because he was afraid that ufology was a cult and it was indoctrinating people into this cult-like thinking. So now looking back at those decades of that nonsense, I'm wondering why it is that they didn't spend their time talking about global warming, or to the extent that, you know, they understood the sort of disinformation campaigns and the lies and the deceit of the fascist rigmarole that gives rise to someone like Trump, that gives rise to plandemic and, you know, vaccines are evil and all this stuff that's just there to cull the herd at this point and kill us all. Why? I'm sure if I go back, I'll find where Neil deGrasse Tyson and others have said something about global warming, maybe have mentioned something about the fascism, but it was never like a 5-alarm fire, the way UFOs were a 5-alarm fire, right? Why is that? Like, as I look at the moment we're in and I think of who else to blame, because I'm running out of people. It's everyone. It's like, you literally, especially with global warming, the world is ending as we know it. You can call it reforming and all of that, but the way it's going to feel and be is like the world is ending. And these guys knew it. And they were somewhat whispered about it, if they were speaking about it at all. But UFOs, that's the real problem. People claiming to be abducted by aliens, that's the real problem. And then meanwhile, what is the underlying impetus for the 5-alarm fire? Oh, it could be a cult. Well, now we see that like a cult elected a president, like a real cult, you know, and nothing. And because mainstream media has decided to take UFOs seriously since 2017, and NASA has decided to, at least publicly, take UFOs seriously, these skeptics, these debunkers, they've had to sort of rearrange their game, right? Suddenly it's not a 5-alarm fire. It's just something that they're doing a public service to explain away things that people find anomalous but may or may not be. So they're much more tepid now. So what was all those decades of anger and vitriol and sneering and arrogance and spitting on people about? I would love Neil deGrasse Tyson to tell me that, and to tell me how it is that he can go on Joe Rogan now still Joe Rogan, who is the millionaire mouthpiece for fascism, just disguising himself as I'm a dumb everyman, hiding behind I'm a comedian, but really promoting fascism. How is Neil deGrasse Tyson and others? He's just jumping out at me because I saw that article that my wife was reading. How is it that he's still going on that show and not calling attention to that? Not calling attention to, like, we'll play the game of like, yeah, Joe, psychedelics are amazing, UFOs are amazing, but you know what else is amazing? Stars. It's like, okay, we're dying here, Maybe you could even just slip in the whole global warming spiel and then tell him like, oh, by the way, Joe, Trump really doesn't care. Trump really doesn't care. And this is the thing that we should really be caring about. And just call out his BS. But so that just, that bothered me because these are the people, who are, I've called them and others the scientific priesthood. Sure, there's still the good old religious priesthood, but ultimately, materialism really and science blew a lot of religion out of the water, but then replaced it with its own authority, right? And its own take on things, which isn't always just based in pure observation and the power of science. No, it's not. It's some of it is propaganda, and some of it is just like white guy points of view. Yes, that even Neil deGrasse Tyson will adopt. This is just the way like white patriarchal society continues to thrive. Even if you replace the one religion with the next thing, that next thing's got to adopt some of the religiosity of the first thing. And why not? Because who doesn't want to be an authority? Hell, nowadays, who doesn't want to be an authoritarian? So I'm looking at this moment that we're in, where you've got lunatics running the asylum, and you've got the asylum about to collapse, and a lot of the people who should know better and put the face on that they are all about just like truth, honesty, sort of that Star Trekian vision of what science is. Who, by the way, you may say like, well, politics isn't part of their thing, but no, they know. They get it. They know, they're not stupid. They know what's going on. But yet they don't speak out. Because why? Is it not a crisis for them? Oh, I didn't turn off my phone. That's a crisis for me. Please hold that thought while I respond to my my lovely wife, who wants to know what I want for dinner. I am live. That sounds great. How about... Okay. Love you. Okay. I have to turn off my ringer now. All right. My wife is a star. She just doesn't know it yet. So what was I saying? Right. So the people who should be up in arms at this moment, outside of the usual suspects, like, for instance, I don't know, the Democratic Party, right? They aren't. But they were for this other stuff. But it's almost like they thought we were idiots before, and now everyone actually is kind of an idiot. And it's like, well, if you can't beat them, join them. Like, is that their attitude? Like, oh boy, we really failed at educating people away from this crap in a big way. Well, I guess we'll just explain things to them one at a time and stop treating them like dummies and more like students. I don't know. But the flip side of this coin is, I wonder, And if you're an experiencer out there, like a lifelong experiencer, not someone who's just like, I think I took a photo of a light in the sky and it's definitely not Venus, but like a lifelong experiencer, do you think that you were prepped for this moment in any way? Even just in terms of existential crisis? Because I know one of the through lines in alien abduction lore has been, one, that there are aliens, two, that they're abducting us, but three, that it's possible we're being prepped for whatever the mass landing was supposed to be or is supposed to be, and that we would be the ones who would help people through it. They would come to us to understand, right? This fantasy where we're the center of the fantasy, except main character syndrome. Hey, there you go. Except I wonder, none of us that I know of, and I've done quite a lot of interviewing, and I've had quite a few experiences myself, and I've had a number of friends who are experiencers, and to a person, I haven't heard one person talk about a mass landing. The types of things you hear about, either directly, for instance, with me, I've had visions of natural calamities coming, right? Some big thing coming. But then there are others like Jeff Ritzmann who never had that visual. And yet in the end, he thought that the experiences, even though they presented themselves, frankly, as evil to him quite a bit, I would, in my estimation, but also, the alien visage and then the interdimensional, being who comes and has a sit-down chat about where he's from and all this stuff. Even through all of that, experiencing all of that, Jeff Ritzmann's take is like, maybe this phenomenon is Earth talking to us. So there's still that sense of like Earth speaking through this facade of whatever's on our mind at the time, aliens, whatever our sense of time is, and our sense of time in the Western mind is forward thinking. So when we think of higher intelligence, we think aliens, or we think us as time travelers coming back. So maybe there is a phenomenon, or maybe Earth presents something we can understand to speak to us through. But whatever the case is, directly or indirectly, it's like everyone has come to in some sort of environmental collapse or a new ice age coming, I should say, and or a new ice age coming, and us living through that, not a mass landing. And I'm wondering, now that we're there, now that we are, the mechanical world, such as it is, I mean, we all know that the world, the materialist view is incorrect, is partial, and the mechanical universe is incorrect, it's partial, but it's partial. It works to an extent. There do seem to be pieces clicking into place here for the big, consequence of our own actions of pollution. I mean, it's mechanical that way, right? You do something and then something happens with that something that you did. In this case, we pollute things and shit melts, and then we go, oh, global warming. Ha ha ha, I love a nice warm day. But that global warming actually creates an ice age. And then you're like, oh, brr, that sucks. So I'm just wondering if we experiencers were actually prepped for that moment. And that moment is upon us. And with that moment, I mean, I have long been talking about how unconsciously, my view is that unconsciously, we all know that this is happening, whether we admit it or not. Unconsciously, you can't not know because we're Earth. We are here. We are beings on Earth, with Earth. We are Earth. And so you can't not know, at least unconsciously, what's going on with Earth, which is what's going on with you. And so we know we're sick. We know we're creating sickness. And we know that the cure is coming. And it's out of our hands. And so feeling that, like ants before a storm, we're scattering about, trying to clamp down and barricade ourselves in. And for me, as far as like voting has been concerned, or what my role is socially, it's been, in my mind, it's been vote in people who will do the least damage, even because I think it's all over. But who do we want to be in the moment of it's actually all over? Do we want to be people who are communal and helpful and try to love each other and get through and go to the next, whatever? Or do we want to do what we're doing now, which is like clamp down, have an authoritarian dictator who, alleviates our fears by promoting fear and then saying, don't worry, I got your back, I got this. But it's all a bunch of lies, but those lies are hidden in such nonsensical gobbledygook that you're not even paying attention anymore. It's all just a swirl. This is how fascism works, because it's nonsense. So they baffle you with bullshit because it is bullshit. It's both. They are both baffling with you bullshit, and they are mentally ill bullshitters. So both are. That's why it's the confusing thing of like, are these people stupid or are they really playing 3D chess? And it's like, they're both. This is how really stupid, powerful people, sociopaths, play 3D chess. And, this is what they got to work with. So it's both. Let me just look at the little chat here. There was something big on the chat, and then it went away. And Stephen says, a lot of novelty and change for sure. Excuse me. I'm sorry if other people said things. On my chat screen, it seems to have gone away, but maybe I will, because I don't want to just, oh boy, there's a lot of people. Okay, well, my chat sucks, but your chat is much better on YouTube. So do you have any content on critical thinking / calling bullshit? I don't know what that means. Any content on critical thinking? I mean, I'm not, that's too, at this point, that's too vague for me, because I've talked about critical thinking in terms of paying attention to media, but I think we're beyond that now. And, I hope, I hope all of what I'm talking about is critical thinking to an extent. Now, obviously, when I get into the realm of like being an experiencer and talking about that stuff, that's where it's like, well, if you're a debunker or a skeptic, you might be out. But even that, I would say that having a sense of discernment there, I've always talked about being important. So when I talk about having visions, you've got to distinguish between like real visions and like dreams that are just dreams that are something else. Like if you don't distinguish between these things and it all just becomes a mishmash of like everything's real, then nothing is real. So I've always promoted that type of critical thinking, but I'm not certain what you're talking about. Meaning people are mostly operating with very little thought on where their information comes from. Yes, people are operating with very little thought on where everything comes from. It's weird. It's hard not to be in a bubble at some point, because everyone that I know or see on Facebook or Blue Sky seem fairly knowledgeable, but then, of course, I've cut out anyone who's a Trumper. Although I did, so when I see polls that are like, at this point, like 53% of people or whatever it is think Trump's doing a good job, whatever it is, it's like, even if it's like 1%, it's bad, but if it's like half or even over half, that's really bad. Like that many people still don't give a shit to actually pay attention to what's going on. And so like that's the only way that you can have that opinion, is like you're not paying attention at all, or the only way that you do pay attention is through right-wing propaganda machine stuff that is only ever going to tell you a lie that Trump is amazing. And then you say that, and then their retort is like, MSNBC, like these two things are equally bad simply because they both have slants. It's like, no, one's a wrecking ball to the word news. The other one is a corporate, usually corporate liberal, in quotes, slant. And yes, in an ideal world, you would take a course in college and you would be able to tell the difference between, all of that. But I think we're done. Like, I think it's too late for that. I don't know what even the point would be. You know what I mean? Like, maybe I'm being a little too pessimistic here. But like, when you have people who are supposed to be Democratic leaders, like Jeffries and Schumer, going on TV and saying, as Jeffries did, what can we do? We have no leverage. Like, mere days after AOC went on Instagram or whatever she's on, TikTok, Instagram, whatever it is, doing like an hour on the leverage that they have and what they should be doing, but she is marginalized and sidelined and relegated to her own social media stuff, while Jeffries gets to go on TV as the so-called leader and say, what can we do? And then he's running to Silicon Valley to shore up, like, I want my own Silicon Valley billionaires, to fight against the Elon Musk Silicon Valley billionaires. It's like ridiculous. Or Chuck Schumer going on and saying, well, we're just going to let them, fuck it up. And then we're going to stand back and let that happen and watch. It's like, you guys are not the people we need right now. But yet those are the people that, that's unfortunately in this country, a deeper discussion or a wake-up call discussion, because people do believe that they are the leaders, right? And it's worse on the right, because at least on the left, like, there probably are a whole bunch of like normal Democrats who get that that's the wrong response right now and don't like it. But on the right, they think that that's all there is. Like, that's all we're paying attention to, So like the right, I don't know. It's too stupid. Let me put it this way. I saw a friend's Facebook post talking to his own friends and family or whatever, some of whom I guess are Trumpers, saying something to them about, now that Trump is this bad, do you have any regrets or something? It was something along those lines. And I just chimed in and said, wait a minute, you still have Trumper friends on Facebook? Well, why aren't they chiming in? Like, why are you guys all so silent? You got everything you wanted, right? So why did you vote for this guy? Just, say it. Stick up for yourselves. And one guy actually wrote a very long response, the gist of which was, I'm not a Trumper, but I voted for Trump because I woke up one day and realized the left has been lying to me my entire life. So right there, you're going to go, what's the left? Who are you talking about? You talking about the Jeffries, Schumer, liberals? Or are you talking about like progressive left? And then lied to you. What do they lie to you about? And what do you mean everything? Like, could you be more vague? And then who are you going to run to? The people who are actual con men, criminals, rapists, racists, sexist, homophobes, like, that's better than whatever you perceive to have been a lie or were actually lied to about on this side. Like, that's... So you can't even get into it because it's nonsense. And then the other part of the nonsense was... and I just saw what happened to Trump for the last 8 years or whatever it was. The trials and tribulations that he's been put through the ringer. So already you've got somebody who claims not to be a Trumper, but they've got a mentality that Trump has been through a lot, and what he's been through are like court cases that he lost for like sexual abuse and things like this, and defamation and tax fraud and, having fake schools and fake charities, this sort of thing, being impeached, so you're not a Trumper, but you must think that those plus January 6th, come on, give them a break. You must be a right-winger to think that all of that is nothing or is okay, acceptable. But at the very, very least, you have to say to yourself, I don't care about black people. I don't care about brown people. I don't care about trans people. Nobody cares about trans people, am I right? I don't care about women. I don't care about anything except white men and money. Like, those are what I care about. Somebody lie to me. Somebody who looks like me but kind of orange, lie to me and tell me I'm going to make enough money to survive or make a ton of money and be just like you. I'll vote for you. I don't care about these other people. Like, that ultimately is what a vote for Trump was, at just the very, very core. So there's no explanation around that except that you're not a good person, right? Like, you're a fascist too. You don't want to be called a fascist. Nobody wants to be called a fascist because that's supposed to be an insult. But sometimes it's just calling it what it is. And so when you're talking about critical thinking and media and all of that, I think the reason we're beyond that is because I don't know how many people are just on the fence anymore and are persuadable, you know? Like, you either know what fascism is and you're not a part of it, or you're a part of it, and if you're in denial that you're a part of it, that's just going to raise your hackles like you've been taught already by the bad media, in other words. You're not going into this as a good faith actor asking, like, is Fox News bad? Or good? Are they really impartial the way they say? Or are they really just entertainment like they had to admit in court? You're not taking part in that discussion. You've already been brainwashed by them. And so to say that what you're talking about is racist or sexist or fascist or whatever, is for you to be defensive and be, what? No! And, all of that. How dare you, snowflake? And then you're like the biggest snowflake on the planet, right? Like that's where we're at. So what I'm asking is, given that that is the moment that we're in, and that's just the political part, and then you've got the global warming part, are experiencers better equipped for this? Because we've gone through the existential crisis, and we've already either been told literally through visions or verbiage that the world is coming to a head here, or civilization as we know it is coming to a head here, and you got to do something about it. And of course, now we're past being able to do something about it, probably. But we either literally got those messages, or we came to it on our own through other messages and communications that seem to be on the surface unrelated, but must not be underneath that, because how else are you coming to this same sort of this is about Earth conclusion? So again, have we gone through an existential crisis already, and we're already there? So we look around, and yes, we can be passionate, we can be angry, we can be sad about what we see around us, but we're not surprised, right? We're not confused in this moment, and we're not, at least I don't feel afraid, because this is the end of the movie I've been playing in my head since since high school, in terms of the global warming stuff. And then in terms of, thinking the bit about unconsciously we're going to clamp down like ants, and we're either going to go fascy or we're going to go progressive here. I mean, that's been at least since 2012 that I can remember. Maybe before that. So I don't know. What do you guys think? I'm going to take a break here and just look at the comments. All right, there's that. My wife, it turns out, loves me too. That's always nice. So that's the end of that story. Let's see. Yeah, I guess just the other thing is the fact that it's tech bros doing this, right? That's another reason that these technologists, debunkers, and skeptics, these scientists, debunkers, and skeptics, the fact that like tech bros are the ones who are the backbone of moving the fascism along here, it's fascinating to me that these guys aren't talking about even that. Or what about just like AI? Like, why wasn't AI treated like a hair on fire moment by them? I mean, rightly or wrongly, maybe he jumped the gun, but the so-called whistleblower, remember, who was working with one of those chatbots, probably called Chatbot, was like, oh my God, it's alive, it's alive. And I read their transcript of their conversation. I didn't think it was alive, but okay. But where's like Neil deGrasse Tyson to be like, oh my God, we're doing the Terminator. We're literally doing the Terminator. Everyone's okay with this? Like, I'm sure someone can point to me where he may have said that. But can you point to me like 10, 15, 20 places where he's said that over and over again and like with passion? The way like saying UFOs aren't real was said with passion. I would love to know what that could have been about, other than like there's no room on this planet for a higher intelligence when you're a priest of science, you know? Said all of that, said all of that. Let me just read this. So at some point here to myself, I said, however, I may have been wrong all of these years. I'm going to give you that I was wrong about the visions and the stuff and the clampdown with the unconscious clampdown, and that's why the fascism, as opposed to like all of the sort of pedestrian answers that you could come up with, which may just be, they're true on their own. But I think that there's a truer truth, a truthiness underneath all of that. But if I'm wrong about the truthiness, I say, however, I may have been wrong all these years. It may be unrelated or weakly related. Not the big deal I've been making of it. But here's the rub. It doesn't matter. Both are here now. Both abilities to destroy and repress ourselves and the planet and the planet have always been in us as seeds. The question we're interested in today, I guess, is what is the origin of these seeds? Not politically, not socially. Those are the stems of the flower. We want to find the energy that manifested these seeds in us in the first place. What do you think that is? What do you think? Maybe someone can answer this for me here in the chat. What do you think the seeds of this are? I mean, it's just funny, like when I talk about the spiritual stuff and I talk about death of self, and I say, I say my spiel and then I say, sit with this, ponder it, sit with it. And then I get backlash because people don't know what sit with it means. It's like, you've never sat with anything alone before? Like, are we really that bad? Are we that just destitute inside and like hollowed out from distractions that we don't know how to just sit with ourselves? But the other thing that I get is like, who has time, right? Like, we're too busy working. No one has time to think about these things. No one has. It's a privilege to be able to think about these things. But we certainly do have time to tell me that, right? That's some time you could have taken to do it. But like, why do we have all of the energy and time in the world to create bombs and weapons and go to war and all of that stuff? Or pretend like we're not going to use them, like we build nuclear bombs, and then we're like, well, we used them once, but we're not going to do it again, I promise. But it's just, we're itching to, the itchy trigger finger is tempting again. Why do we have the energy to do that? Why do we have the energy to build, to invent all of the so-called conveniences that produce the pollution in terms of carbon in the atmosphere, but also the microplastics that have now taken over our bodies and everything else? we have all the energy in the world to do that and to use them and to stand in line for like an iPhone at midnight or whatever. But when it comes to like the important things of, I don't know, figuring out what a human is, figuring out what you are, figuring out not who you are as somebody growing up out of childhood, but like who you are, what it means to be alive. Like, what are you? What is different than an animal or a plant in you, if anything? Like, these sorts of like just basic, what should be basic questions, we say we don't have time for. But we have time, all the time in the world, for the destructive stuff, not for the waking up stuff. Unless that waking up stuff is coded in New Age jargon and is profitable. That we have all the time in the world for, right? I mean, how many New Age things have you seen where it's like, or even religious, like evangelists, where they straight up tell you that like money isn't a problem. God didn't mean money was bad. Jesus didn't mean money was bad. Money can actually be very spiritual. Money can actually be holy. Praying for things and money and shit to fill your life out, pad your life out, consumerism. You can pray as a consumer and be a holy person, right? Like, we have all the energy in the world to do that, but not to just like sit and shut up and ponder with ourselves, not as a social scene, not to get likes and subscribes, and not to sound like the smartest person in the room, but just to like be with yourself and confront you. That takes too much time and too much energy. When did that happen? Why did that happen? And is that related to the seeds of war? Which and when I say that, I don't just mean war amongst ourselves. I mean with Earth, on Earth, against animals, against trees, against plants. We're at war within ourselves, and therefore we're at war out here with everything else. That's the way it works. So we've got all the time in the world to do war, internally and therefore externally, but no time to contemplate why that is. And yet, within the framework of that, we have all the time in the world and all the energy in the world to contemplate how to be better. Not to sit with how we actually are, but to try to reverse it, or to try to, which means repress it. Because when you do it within the context of the war, what you're trying to do is repress the thing you are for the thing you wish you were, but that repression is still part of the conflict. It's still creating the war. It's you repressing and waiting to explode again. So how do we look at all of that and just sit with that and just look at it? Well, we can't apparently, because we don't have the energy and we don't have the time. So this to me is actually a more important issue to tackle individually than whether we have critical thinking skills watching TV news and the such. Because ultimately that is all part of the war. That's all part of the distraction that we love to engage in. And so on that level, I suppose it doesn't really matter, how smart you are and how well versed you are in, media psychology. I don't know. Okay, I'm going to look at the chat again here. If you would have asked me 4 years ago, you would have gotten a typical experience or typical experiencer answer. Since I have become a believer in God, it is definitely different. I don't know what that means, but I don't know what's different. I don't know what God you're talking about. I don't know what belief means in that sentence, honestly. Like, a believer in God. I mean, What did that do for you? I don't understand. I don't understand. Of course, the other thing I don't understand is the technology I'm looking at, because it's possible I'm reading these out of order. And then, then that's a problem. Humans are a frustrating bunch, my friend. Yes, indeed. We can feel lucky to witness this period in time or freak out. I mean, what to do? Well, are we witnessing this period in time, or are we actually this period in time? I mean, we're doing it, right? There is no... Because anyway you cut it, there's Elon and Trump and, Biden. Is it the Navajo, a reservation in Navajo country where under Biden there was a trucking company that was bringing uranium through uncovered, like uncontained, just bringing truckloads of uranium through. Could be spilling off the truck. It's irradiating the air. There are kids there. People live there. But screw them, they're Indians, right? And this is under Biden. How is that trucking company able to do that? Were the drivers even wearing hazmat suits? Were they safe? It doesn't... We're all doing it. I mean, I'm on a computer. I know that this Mac, at some point I'm going to trade it in for a new Mac, and then this Mac, I'll trade it in and I'll hope for the best for it. But from what I understand, it'll likely end up in some sort of landfill town, like an entire town in China that is a massive Apple landfill or computer landfill, where kids rummage through like some sort of already post-apocalyptic dystopian scene for parts that they can sell or whatever. I know I'm part of the problem by living in this society. To live in the society is to be part of the problem, but you can live in the society and not be of the society in some sense. But there are certain ways in which being in the society means you're in the society. And so I don't think there is any objective bystander in this society who gets to step back and say, oh, aren't we lucky to be witnessing this time? No, you've got to pay your penalty for the shit you're doing too, right? It's not just the big bad guys at the top telling you the inside part out loud of boogada boogada boo, this is what we want to do, mwahaha. Project 2025, mwahaha. It's also the politicians doing the things you weren't paying attention to or allowing them to happen. There are no repercussions for this. And this is just one instance, this truckload of, or truckloads of uranium. That's just one little instance of things that are either allowed to happen or are known about. And, that's how it works. Even under Democrats, there's no end to that. And we're a part of that too. Now, we can't know everything, right? We can't be educated on everything. That's not possible. But we do make decisions in our own lives. And, a lot of times we choose what's convenient for us as opposed to what's best for all or what's best for Earth. I mean, we just all do that. So we got to pay the piper. We've at least got to admit to ourselves, yeah, I'm part of the problem because I live here, and this is the problem. Stephen goes on to say, I became a Christian after a lifetime of experiencer stuff that still happens. Perspective change. What was I trying to convey? Was what I was trying to convey. Perspective change. Yeah. And actually, just on a side note, I'd be interested to know, since you became a Christian, did the phenomenon change in the way that you interacted with it? Or did you change and did anything change about that interaction? In other words, So if you were fearful of it, you got Jesus on your side. Now are you not fearful? And if so, does the phenomenon change because that barrier of fear is gone? Is it that amorphous or no? I'll wait. I would love to know the answer to that. How's the top of my head doing, by the way? As I was doing my hair, I noticed like this going across my head is like this white hair, and I thought, it kind of looks badass. I gotta get my hair cut for sure, but I gotta make it look badass. There's got to be a way. It can't just be this nutty professor look or whatever this is. Disheveled dude. Disheveled dude. That's my superhero name. While I wait for that, I'm just going to check and see if I had anything else. I don't think I did. But I'm wondering, does, and you don't have to answer this. This is for you to answer to yourself. I mean, do you sit with yourself and ask yourself deep questions about you? Are you afraid to look in that mirror and see who you are without reacting to it, without feeling guilty or not feeling guilty? Or if you do feel guilty, to allow yourself to feel guilty about whatever, anything that might make you feel guilty. In other words, is it possible for you to sit with whatever feeling you're feeling and be self-aware in that moment that you're feeling it and just describe that to yourself and sort of deconstruct why it is you're feeling whatever it is you're feeling? It might be easier to do with good feelings if you're feeling happy or joy or something. But like if you're feeling fear, if you're feeling guilt, if you're feeling anxious, what is it? Have you ever deconstructed that? And have you ever asked yourself, like, how much of my day is spent feeling this? Like, do I like feeling that way secretly? Or am I just so used to it that that's like how I feel as a baseline? And then if I feel anything positive, that's an aberration in some way. And then I snap back to whatever the negative feeling is. But I don't like admitting that. Like, is that who you are? Like, can you look at these things in you? Or does that just sound like navel gazing? Like, do I just sound like, is this crazy talk to say, have you ever sat with yourself and, because you're like, sit with myself, beep, boop, boop, beep, and then you're on your Game Boy or something? Like, or your Nintendo Switch 2 coming soon? Ting. Okay, I don't know why I did that. It's not a paid promotion. All right, I'm going to look at this. So Steve goes on, I worked through the fear part of the experiences a long time ago, so no, that didn't change. Also, I did not choose to become a Christian. It happened one day. Shocked the hell out of me. Yeah, literally shocked the hell out of you, apparently. All right, well, good for you, buddy. That answers that. Okay. I've got nothing. I've got nothing else. That's all I wanted to say, really. When next we meet, I guess, I will, if I have figured all of this technology out, and I promise I won't go to the dump that day, so I'll have time. It'll be with Tom Cheetham, who is a former biologist, biologist, and is a current, I don't know, I guess he's the foremost expert on Henry Corbin. So he knows hoity-toity things. Ibn Arabi, if that name rings a bell, he talks about Ibn Arabi all the time. Sufism, mysticism, the angel out in front, the imaginal realms, that sort of thing. Fun. But then also he's been doing iboga as of the last, year or two. And that has, we've had some fun talking about that, and that has kind of changed his life. But now I think he's finally ready. He's ready to tackle Jiddu Krishnamurti. So I'm preparing him for that. I've given him a book list. We'll see how that goes. I'm sure we'll be talking about it if he actually ends up reading any of it. He has expressed interest in it, finally, which is good. Because then he can read it and be like, oh, you're just stealing from him. And I'll be like, kinda. It's all been said. I mean, this isn't novel. This is universal, after all. It's all within you. Truth really is a pathless land because you're already there, Dorothy. See, it was in The Wizard of Oz. Anyway, I'm out. Thank you for listening to this ramble. If you are an experiencer of some sort, a lifelong experiencer, I would like to know, do you feel as though this is the moment that you've been prepped for? Or, and maybe a more neutral way to put it is, compared to people you know who are not experiencers, do you feel less existential gloom and doom in the existential gloom and doom moment that we find ourselves in? And that can have to do with the politics of the day and or the global climate crisis of the day. Either one. Or if there's a third thing, a zombie apocalypse, let me know about that. I'd love to know about that. But either of those things, do you feel as though you mentally, you recognize, of course, it's awful and you have moments of anxiety and all that, but not as bad as everyone else? Like you're at heart, you've kind of been expecting this all along, or you feel okay with it. What say you? Because maybe the other part of it is like, if you have a lifetime of either confusing or terrifying even UFO experiences, alien so-called, in quotes, experiences, do normal, what should be terrifying events kind of bounce off you a little more? Because you've already felt what that feels like. You know what the real terror is. Somewhere in there. I would just like to know. So you can write to me, jeremy@ourundoing.com, if you like, or leave a comment here on this video or wherever you find me on social media. I would love to know. I will read one more thing here from Steven, who says, just wanted to say, not a typical Christian, so hope you don't think I was here preaching love and all that. No. I mean, hey, go ahead and preach love. Love and light. We need that, right? Feel free. I don't think that. I just, I think asking you about this and talking with you about this would take a real conversation, not just like a time delayed back and forth in a YouTube chat. I've already talked about my experiences with Christianity, or feeling as though being overcome with redemption after reading a prayer when I was a kid, and then finally, reading it a bunch of times, and finally meaning it. And so I understand like the full-bodied, like the actual physiological reaction to that and the clearing out to that. I don't know if it's the same as what you're experiencing, but I'm saying I get it on that level. But I also get that ain't Jesus doing that. That is just giving up. This giving up does it. So, and as far as anything coming to me, like if a Jesus or an angel, I mean, you see how I treat aliens. I put quote marks around it. I say they're not aliens. So if something comes to me and says, I'm an alien, I'm like, no, you're not. Like, I think I would pretty much treat the angelic realm that way. I just think that there is, my take on it, if you want to say my take, if that makes everyone feel comfortable out there, that I'm not just saying it, I'm saying it's my take. God, I hate that. But okay, is that there's a whole bunch of imagination stuff, imaginal, not necessarily, but inclusive of, transcending and including, I'll say, what Henry Corbin described as the imaginal. I'm talking about all of it. There's a silly putty realm of formless awarenesses out there that are all, you could describe them as the underbelly of the universe. And then there are beings outside of the universe, outside of space-time. And I'm not so sure that this universe thing isn't really just a puppet show. And that the real thing are these people here who know how to use the puppets. And whatever puppet of the time gets through to us. But also, it's not that cut and dry, because Carl Jung is kind of right. Like, there is... there's a life unto itself here. I guess this is a longer, more confusing discussion, but in that underbelly realm, it's like, are they aware in the way that we are aware? They present themselves as aware, and yet they seem to be about our growth, whereas beings outside of time seem to be about waking us the hell up, transcending and including what we are now in a flash, not as evolution, not as, oh, life is a school, not as, you know, get your karma built up and hope for the best in the next life or whatever. But it seems like any being that is about that seems to me to be like this silly putty from the universe, trying to keep us here, trying to keep people who do confront themselves, who do reflect on their own lives and all of that, from the truth, because the truth with a capital T is outside of, transcends and includes, I should say, the universe. And the universe, when you experience the death of self, the universe is experiencing the death of self, because you are the universe, and the universe is you. And so the universe may want that in temporarily, dip your toe outside of itself, as it were, to lure in novel experiences, to lure in the new, which then build out this, what I'm calling the underbelly of the universe, this sort of carnival of stuff that you can experience through psychedelics or meditation or prayer, or it just comes at you in the forest at night alone. All of those worlds get padded out through the only novel experience the universe can have, because contrary to our sense of time, everything already just is. So what I'm saying is, when everything already just is, the just isn't is actually outside of the universe looking in. And so with that, I'm saying that is actually, I mean, what we need to be. We need to be body of the universe, body of Earth, body here in time. But mind does not need to be a psychological construct of the brain of the body. Mind needs to be truth, which is outside. So timelessness. So instead of timelessness, we have this psychological time construct called me, right? It's a projection of the body. That just is. So if Jesus or somebody is coming to me and then I'm going to be like, oh, I have a soul, I'm going to heaven. No. Because that's a thought construct. I'm a thought construct. We're both bullshit. That ain't truth. But I don't want to say that to you and ruin your fun if you've just found Jesus, right? Like, so it's already an awkward conversation. I'm just saying that's my point of view. Do I have to say my? Okay. All right. Good. We're done. I do thank you for sharing that, Stephen, and I hope you're not too put off by my blah, blah, blah. In the end, you're going to live your life however you live it, and it's not going to affect you at all. So there's that, and vice versa. And now we've learned a little something about the times we live in. We all communicate with each other, and we refuse to be affected by it. All right. Love you. Bye-bye, everyone. Thanks for doing this with me.